You walk into a room and forget why you came. You stand there for a moment, not confused exactly, just momentarily disconnected from the intention that brought you here. Then you go back to where you started, and it returns. You open your phone to do one specific thing. 10 minutes later, you are somewhere else entirely, and whatever you opened it for has vanished. A name you know, someone you have known for years, disappears in the middle of a sentence. The shape of the word is there, the person is there, the name is somewhere. Just not here, not now, not when you need it. You read the same paragraph twice. You forget whether you already told someone something. You lose the thread of a thought in the middle of a meeting. And beneath these small, ordinary moments, something larger begins to form. Not a thought, exactly. More like a quiet verdict. My brain isn't what it used to be. Maybe you're right, but perhaps not in the way you think. There is a specific quality to this fear, after 40, that it does not have at 25. At 25, forgetting a name is just forgetting a name. At 45, the same moment can feel like evidence. The cognitive event is small, a few seconds of searching, a word that returns a minute later when you stop reaching for it. But the meaning attached to it has grown. You remember being sharper? You remember when these things didn't happen. Or at least you remember remembering that way. And so a moment that would have passed entirely without comment 10 years ago becomes something you notice, something you file, something that joins a quiet, private collection of similar moments you have been keeping, perhaps without realizing it. The word for this kind of fear is not paranoia, it is reasonable. The brain does change with age. And the first honest thing this episode can offer you is not reassurance. It is a more accurate picture of what is actually happening. Some aspects of cognitive function do change across adulthood. Processing speed, the raw rate at which the brain takes in new information, executes simple decisions, and performs straightforward mental operations, shows a gradual change for many people, beginning in early adulthood and continuing across the lifespan. Working memory, the system that holds information temporarily in an active state while you use it, shows age-related differences in capacity and efficiency for many adults. Certain aspects of attention shift. The ability to filter irrelevant information, to switch rapidly between different demands, to sustain focus against distraction. These can change. The retrieval of specific words, names, and episodic details, where you put something, who told you something, what you read last week, can become slower or require more effort. These are real changes. They are documented across decades of research by cognitive scientists including Timothy Salthouse, Denise Park, and many others. They are not invented by people who want you to feel worse about getting older. But there is always a but. And this one matters enormously. Not every forgotten word is aging. Not every distracted afternoon is decline. Not every exhausted evening is evidence that something has gone wrong. Some of what you are experiencing may be the ordinary, measurable, well-documented way an adult brain changes across decades, and some of it may be something else entirely. Here is something the research does not always make clear in popular accounts. Many of what adults experience as memory failures are not failures of memory. They are failures of encoding. For a memory to be retrieved, it first has to be made. And memory formation requires something that modern life does not reliably protect: attention. When the brain does not fully attend to an experience at the moment it occurs, there is very little laid down to retrieve later. The forgetting is not the problem. The moment of encoding is, you walk into the kitchen and do not quite notice why. Your attention is on 3 other things simultaneously: a problem from work, a message you haven't replied to, a half-formed thought about something you need to do later. Part of you arrives in the kitchen, most of you is elsewhere, and then you stand there, in a room you entered with a purpose, and the purpose is gone. Not because your memory is failing, because the encoding barely happened. This is one of the most important distinctions in cognitive science, and it rarely appears in conversations about aging, because it points at something uncomfortable. Many of the moments we later fail to remember may have never been fully experienced in the first place. A distracted moment cannot become a clear memory. You cannot retrieve what was never quite laid down. Consider the conditions under which your brain is now operating. At 25, your working memory held fewer things, not because it was less capable, because there were fewer things demanding space inside it. Now, think about what an adult brain in midlife may be carrying on any ordinary Tuesday. Decisions about work, worries about money, concerns about parents or children or relationships, a background hum of unfinished tasks, a stack of unread messages, the interrupted thought from 2 hours ago that never got resolved, the appointment scheduled for next week, the conversation you need to have with someone but haven't had yet. And underneath all of this, often invisible, often unacknowledged, the ongoing, low-grade metabolic cost of a life full of responsibility. Cognitive load is a term psychologists use to describe the total demand being placed on the working memory system at any given moment. When load is high, when the mind is simultaneously holding many pieces of active, unresolved, competing information, what is available for any single task diminishes. This is not aging, this is arithmetic. A brain asked to carry everything may have less available to give to any one thing. A crowded mind is not the same as a failing mind, but it can feel exactly like one. There is another factor that rarely appears in conversations about memory: chronic stress. Not the stress of a difficult day which passes and resolves, the kind that persists across months and years. The elevated background level of threat responsiveness that develops when a person is consistently operating in conditions where there are more demands than available resources. Research from multiple labs has documented how sustained stress can affect attention, working memory, and the hippocampus, a region centrally involved in the formation and retrieval of new memories. Cortisol, released during stress, is important and functional in appropriate doses. Chronically elevated, it can interfere with some of the very processes that make new learning stick. This matters for a simple reason. Many adults experiencing cognitive difficulties are not experiencing the ordinary, gradual cognitive changes of aging in isolation. They are experiencing those changes, which are real, against a background of chronic overload, inadequate sleep, persistent stress, and constant interruption. And they are judging the result as evidence of decline, when some portion of it may be evidence of conditions. Sleep is not merely rest. It is when the brain does the work that consolidates what was learned during the day. The hippocampus replays recent experiences during sleep, transferring the residue of the day into more durable storage, integrating new information with existing knowledge, clearing the working memory system for tomorrow's use. An adult who is sleeping poorly, which describes a significant proportion of adults in midlife and beyond, for a variety of well-documented reasons, is working with a system that does not fully recover overnight. The cognitive performance of the sleep-deprived brain has been documented extensively. Attention suffers, working memory capacity shrinks, word retrieval slows, decision-making becomes less accurate. A person living with chronic sleep restriction does not always feel dramatically impaired. The brain adapts to its current state and begins treating it as normal, but the cost accumulates. And if that person is also carrying significant cognitive load, managing persistent stress, and living in an environment of constant digital interruption, then what they are experiencing may have considerably less to do with the decade they were born in than with the conditions they are currently asking their brain to work under. Speaking of interruption, research on task switching suggests that rapidly and frequently shifting attention between different tasks carries a cognitive cost, not the dramatic, permanent damage that popular articles sometimes claim, but a real reduction in the depth of processing available to any single task. Each shift requires the brain to reload the context of what it is doing, to reconstruct what was active in working memory, re-establish what the goal is, and pick up where the thread was dropped. The brain, at 25, did not multitask more efficiently. It may have been doing fewer things and living in an environment with fewer competing claims on its attention. Here is the comparison that almost no one makes honestly. When you remember being sharper at 25, you may also be choosing not to remember being less interrupted at 25, less responsible at 25, getting more sleep at 25, carrying fewer simultaneous obligations at 25, having a phone that could not reach you with 17 different demands at 25. You are comparing two brains, but you may be forgetting to compare the two very different lives those brains were trying to navigate. Your brain at 25 was not simply better. It was operating in a completely different world. And the fair question is not whether you perform as well as you once did. It is whether you are giving your current brain any of the conditions it needs to perform well at all. There are things the adult brain still has: accumulated knowledge, expertise, vocabulary, pattern recognition built from decades of encountering the world, the ability to see what matters quickly because you have seen so many things before, a richer set of mental models to hang new information on, a more developed understanding of what can be ignored because you have learned what usually counts. A younger brain may sometimes reach a conclusion faster. An experienced brain may understand more quickly whether the conclusion matters. These are not trivial differences. They are part of why expertise is not wasted by age in the way that raw processing speed can change. A skilled clinician, a seasoned negotiator, an experienced designer, what they do in the relevant moments of their domain does not depend only on speed. It depends on a kind of recognition that only accumulates. This does not mean that age automatically confers wisdom. Experience can build expertise. It can also reinforce blind spots. But the picture of a brain in gradual, total, uniform decline is not what the research shows. It is much more specific than that. So what actually helps? Not hacks, not supplements, not specific apps. The most important thing is not a technique. It is a decision about how to treat the conditions that surround the brain. Sleep is not optional recovery. It is when memory consolidates, working memory restores, and the cognitive costs of the day are processed. Protecting sustained attention, creating periods where a single task receives the full resources of the working memory system, produces a different quality of thinking than the fragmented attention of constant switching. Physical activity, has a body of evidence behind it relating to brain health that is more consistent and more robust than almost anything else studied in this domain. Reducing unnecessary cognitive load, writing things down, creating systems that reduce the burden on working memory, externalizing information that does not need to be held in the head, is not a sign of weakness. It is intelligent architecture and meaningful challenge, learning something genuinely difficult, something that requires the brain to construct new understanding, make errors, retrieve actively, and return again and again to material that resists easy mastery. The brain responds to demand, not age, not intention, demand. And there is no age at which the response to genuine, sustained, well-structured demand has been shown to simply stop, return one final time to the ceiling, 2 hands, 2 fingers, the gap that Michelangelo refused to close. For this episode, the gap is something different from all the others. It is not the distance between ambition and achievement, not the distance between who you were and who you might have become. It is the small, quiet, daily distance between a moment happening and the mind fully arriving inside it, between the life that is passing through you and the attention that would make it a memory, between the conversation in front of you and the part of you that is already somewhere else, the forgotten room, the lost word, the paragraph read twice. These are not always evidence of a failing brain. Sometimes they are evidence of a mind that has not yet arrived, that is still in the room it just left, or already in the room it is about to enter. Perhaps your brain does not need to become 20 again. Perhaps it needs something harder to give. Your attention. Not all of it. Not always. But more of it. More often. To fewer things at once. The mind you have now is not the mind you had then. But it is the only mind in which anything you care about can be noticed, learned, remembered, or made. And what you give your attention to is still, at every age, a choice. Every neuron remembers, every thought changes you, every choice rewrites you. The gap is still there, the spark is still crossing. So become.